All right, good evening, everybody. We are, welcome to the Arcadia Unified School District Board of Education meeting on May 27th, 2025. It is 7:05 p.m. And I am calling this meeting to order, which is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube and can be accessed at boardmeeting.ausd.net. Roll call, we have Board Member Chavez excused, and then Mr. Gazanian excused as well. All right, Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Fan, would you like to do Pledge of Allegiance today?
Please rise. Put your hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Fan. And I have inspiration this evening. It is that time of year, and I get a little nostalgic and a lot more emotional around this time. Just seeing so many of our students grow from young children and into young adults now. Last meeting, there were some students here at the board meeting who I remember being hosts at the middle schools. And now they're part of DCI with Ryan, visiting our board meeting. And then as there are kids who I remember volunteering during like kindergarten and doing centers who are now in SMW, right? And a lot has happened. There's a lot of life that happens. And it reminds me that life and time passes very quickly and how important it is to pause and celebrate the milestones that we will be celebrating in these next couple of weeks. So that brings to mind what an Italian poet Cesare Pavese wrote, "We do not remember days, we remember moments." And I think a lot of us, especially those of us who are parents, see a lot of truth in this quote, with so many of our days blurring in our busy lives. Yet we all recognize that within each day, there are little moments of human connection to cherish, and on occasion there are big moments to celebrate. So whether it's getting ready to go from the little school to the big school at Yucca Reed, or getting ready to promote from middle school to high school, or putting on that crimson cap and gown to signify the end of one journey and the beginning of the next. These transitions give us the opportunity to take a break, reflect, and rejoice during these precious moments together. So as we take part in these and other celebrations in coming days, let's slow down and ensure that it is not just another day, but an important moment to remember and treasure forever. And that is my inspiration. All right, the approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda, please.
I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
All right, I'll take the motion by Mr. Ink, second by Ms. Vargo. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Report out of action taken in closed session. We had no actions taken in closed session. And one final student rep report from Ms. Ban. We are ready. Maybe.
Maybe.
Good evening, everyone. I really wanted to prepare something, but I wrote, to be honest, no preparation because I fell asleep. So these are my frantic scribbles, but I'm beyond grateful for this experience. And despite all the acronyms that I never got to understand, the long school nights, and the budget preparations I also couldn't understand, the one thing that I've taken away from this experience is that this district loves me and the entirety of the student population, and that I love this district. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much for this experience. And for the last time, my name is Michelle Fan. I'm the ASB student representative from the 23 to 25 school year, and this is the board report for May 27th, 2025. The senior assembly took place on May 22nd, where administration went over key events and tasks for the graduating year. The annual ASB Transfer of Powers Banquet is being held at Dave & Buster's on May 30th, where incoming members will be officially sworn in. The club rechartering process is underway with 76 clubs submitting applications. Quiz Bowl attended the National Quiz Bowl tournament from May 23rd to 26th in Atlanta, Georgia. Band, orchestra, and choir performed at the Pops Assembly and Concert on May 22nd. Students enjoyed various performances inspired by pop culture. Senior Week is taking place this week from May 26th to May 30th, with various activities including movie night, senior sunset, and chalk day. This week will culminate on May 30th with Senior Activity Day, the talent show, and grad run. Junior Council concluded their last fundraiser of the year at BJ's Brewhouse on Wednesday, May 21st. Sophomore Council hosted their last sophomore bonding event of the year on Wednesday, May 21st, called Spring Bling. Freshman Council held its last restaurant fundraiser at Raising Cane's on Friday, May 16th. The Arcadia High School valedictorian for the class of 2025 is Max Ma. The salutatorian speakers at the baccalaureate ceremony are Emily Chen and Nathan Chang. And that concludes the board report.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fan. We do love you, and we will miss you. And we really appreciated your voice over the last 2 years. And you know, it's just been so rewarding to see you grow over these last 2 years. And really, every time you've spoken, you've given us more things to think about and appreciate. And it just makes us really, really proud to have you as our student rep for the last 2 years. And we're excited to see all the amazing things you're going to do in the future.
Great. Thank you so much.
And we do have a few things for you. We have a certificate of recognition for you as our student rep over the last 2 years. And I'll just read. Certificate of recognition presented to Michelle Fan with recognition and appreciation for her contribution and leadership in pursuing educational excellence for the students of the district. So we have this for you, and then we have also
And you know we're gonna take a picture.
a small gift to remind wherever you go, remind you of us. We have a Arcadia mug, and then an Amazon gift card for whatever dorm supplies and things like that you may need next year. So, and yes, we do need to take a picture, I believe.
One back up and deep.
We have a camera coming. We're flying in a special camera for this. Yeah, if not.
Probably house maybe college, right? Was that TSA Spirit? Yes.
Let's take a practice photo. With this one. See, now we're ready for the reveal.
Audience comments. We have no audience comments, so we are to action items. A, award of contract locker room modernization and interim housing at Arcadia High School. Mr. Esslin?
I'll turn it right over to Mr. Barrios.
Good evening, board members. So tonight I want to discuss the decision-making process we undertook for the locker room modernization and interim housing project, specifically regarding the delivery method. Initially, we began with exploring the lease-leaseback approach. So just as a reminder, the typical lease-leaseback delivery method is when the district leases the property on which the project is located to a general contractor for a nominal annual fee. This is often referred to as the site lease. The general contractor, in turn, subleases the property back to the district, often referred to as the leaseback or the facilities lease. The district then makes lease payments to the general contractor in consideration for the improvements, i.e. the construction project, and for the ability for the district to occupy the property. This delivery method is explicitly permitted under Education Code 17406. So one key advantage of lease-leaseback is the potential to shift the risks of certain cost overruns to the contractor. It also allows for the collaborative planning and cost assessments before the final contract is signed. The guaranteed maximum price inherent in a lease-leaseback contract can reduce the district's financial risk, although unforeseen conditions can still lead to change orders. Conversely, relying solely on the lowest bid can compromise quality and introduce hidden costs that are negative and negate the initial savings. Exceptionally low bids low bidders may lead to cut corners in materials, labor, or timelines, potentially impacting the quality and safety. Unforeseen issues, delays, and change orders can also inflate the cost beyond the initial low bid. And initially, the preliminary numbers we received from lease-leaseback approach were nearly double our budget. While we knew negotiations was possible, we also considered the hard bid option. To keep both avenues open and to avoid project delays, we started the hard bidding process, informing the lease-leaseback contractor of our intentions. During the lease-leaseback process, Erickson Hall was selected as the contractor after committee interviews. They suggested value engineering and schedule accelerations, which could lead to cost savings. Our initial budget, set 2 years prior, was $6.5 million. Through negotiations with Erickson Hall and the implementation of value engineering, a team-based approach focused on cost-effective alternatives, the negotiated lease-back cost is now $7,083,903. So the lease-back method also offers transparent cost breakdowns and including the contractor's fees. As both processes progressed, the lease-back's contractor's figures moved closer to our initial estimates. We also had received hard bids, and after careful consideration, we decided to move forward with the best overall value for the district. Given the importance of this high school project and the potential challenges involved, we concluded that the lease-back contractor offered the best value for our needs. Dirk, your section, sir.
Okay. There's something else I was going to say, but I don't remember at the moment. But it's been a process. We've sort of gone down these parallel paths, trying to sort of keep all of our options open for this, which I think is going to be our first project with Measure AS, or may still use some of our old bond funds. But we're ready to hit the ground running. We've talked a lot about within construction and in general inflation the last few years, and so that was a real concern for us. I appreciate, we have people from Erickson Hall here tonight. We have Justin Sinat and Scott Hammond. Thank you for attending here this evening. But I really appreciate that they continue to work with us through the process, even as we were going out for these hard bids. It just really speaks to some of the advantages that we benefit from this lease-back process. So within the board item, I'm just going to read the background paragraph because our attorney suggested we do that. So the administration solicited qualifications and proposals for the locker room modernization and interim housing services at Arcadia High School. 3 proposals were submitted, and after reviewing and scoring all the proposals, it was determined that the proposal from Erickson Hall Construction provided the best value for the district. And the administration is recommending that the project be awarded to Erickson Hall Construction. Part of that process included an interview panel, where I know I was not there, I wasn't able to attend, but we had principals
It
and
was the
others.
future principal, Jorge Munoz, myself, Jaime Morales from our purchasing department, Melinda Williams, our facilities coordinator, was also there. So it was all of us interviewing all 3 firms, and we all arrived at Erickson Hall being the partner that we wanted to work with. We were really impressed by all the options they offered and a lot of the suggestions they had even at the beginning.
And I'll just add for clarity's sake, that one of the items in the consent agenda is to reject all of the hard bids. So again, we kept our options open as long as we could, and that's where we landed. But I'm glad we went through that process, because it helped us get a better idea of what the market is offering right now, and we feel pretty good, feel very good about the road that we're going down right now. Any questions?
What is the expected timeline again? Remind me.
The projected timeline is about 8 to 9 months is what we're looking at. That's the offered accelerated, so they're not in their head, yes, that's an agreement.
And that's one of the advantages,
Yes.
Because the hard bids were designed around, I think, a 13-month project.
Okay.
Obviously, that doesn't give you any cushion. And when companies are on site doing construction, that costs them money, which we pay them. So the faster we can get the work done, the better for us, just in terms of keeping our schools running smoothly, and it also helps reduce the cost.
All right. Any questions? It's exciting. Those are, I think, the same locker rooms I was in. So
Yeah, we were looking through there the other day, and we saw your name
Yeah.
scratched. in one of the-
Drew a locker.
all right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Barrios. Thank you, Mr. Eslin. So I need a motion for this item, please.
I'll move toward the contract of the lease spec locker room modernization interim housing at Arcadia High School.
Motion was made by Mrs. Yee
I'll second it.
and seconded by Mrs. Vargo. Any other discussion? All right. I will call for a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item B, award of contract construction management services for locker room modernization and interim housing at Arcadia High School. Back to Mr. Eslin
All right.
and Mr. Vargas.
So, again, we conducted an RFQ for a construction manager. We received about 10 proposals from 10 different vendors. Of those 10, we selected 4 to interview, and of those 4, we arrived at 2 of them being considered for our construction management pool. So, in the future years to come, these 2 companies, we will pull from their resources to be able to staff our projects as we see fit or where we need the help. And currently, one of the firms that did get selected is RCM, and Mr. Jerry Roberts is actually here, anxiously awaiting to get to work. So essentially, the 2 firms are RCM with Jerry Roberts and Nolan Construction with Chris Nolan. Nolan has also done projects in the past with the school district, so we're very familiar with both of these firms, and we felt very comfortable. The size of the firm is something that we actually really liked, because I can call the president and he's going to call me back right away. So it's the same for both firms. So we really felt comfortable with these 2 firms, and their pricing was good.
How does that
Okay.
work with the 2 firms? Like, I mean, you just like rotate them, or
Yeah,
are they
so-
they specifically good for certain projects?
Yeah, so it depends on the type of projects that we have. So my thought process is for the solar projects, we can have Nolan help us with those projects. Jerry's helping us with the locker room interim housing. They've worked a lot with Erickson Hall, so they have a good relationship there. And as the projects progress, we start asking for proposals for this project, and we just kind of staff them as things move along, just giving us the flexibility. Also, it helps keep them both honest, essentially. Yeah, they're still competing against each other.
Got it, thank you.
So this item is for specifically the locker room, the management of the locker room modernization project for RCM,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Yeah, and sorry, again, within the consent item agenda, we have items to approve the contractor pool for construction
right.
management services, and then also a pool for leaseback projects.
Okay.
But these two action items are specific to the locker room project.
Got it. All right, any other questions?
I assume that they'll be working really closely with the bond oversight person that we approved. Was it a bond control specialist? That was what it was?
Once we fill that position, yes, they will be working closely
Well-
together.
I mean, will that be the primary point of contact, or will it be you, Tony?
It will be, depending on
Melinda?
what's happening, it's going to be a lot Melinda Williams,
Oh, okay.
and myself. The bond control specialist is going to be more of an in-house to help myself and Melinda
Got it.
work with the budgets
Okay.
and stuff.
They're more office-based rather than site-based.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I need a motion for this item.
I move to approve the award of contract for construction management services for locker room modernization and interim housing at Arcadia High School.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Mr. Ing, seconded by Mrs. Yee. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Okay, item C, public notice, waiver of credential requirements, Dr. Hirschu.
All right. Well, as you know, it's always a goal of ours to be credentially compliant in Arcadia. And in efforts to do so, we bring this item forward, which will help us make sure that our new assistant principal at the high school, Shannon will be credentially compliant. So approval of this variable term waiver will allow us to do so while she finishes her admin credential program in the fall. So with that, we recommend approval.
Right, any questions? What does variable term mean?
Well, I'd have to have Stephanie Paws tell you exactly what that means. She is my credentials magician, so I'll get back to you
Okay.
on that one.
Any
I
other questions?
guess I do have a question.
sure.
When David and I spoke earlier, he was saying that, generally to be in the admin credential program, you have to already have an admin job, right? Is that correct? Do I have that right?
To start working on your certificate,
On
right?
your certificate?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm getting confused. As I remember, like, when my kids were in elementary school, there were some teachers that were moving into other positions, and I would hear parents say, like, oh, they're working on their admin something?
Mhm.
Can you tell me
Their admin
what that,
credential?
is that the same thing, or is that
Yeah, so
different?
typically you go through a university program to
Uh-huh.
work on your admin credential. So I did something similar when I was transitioning from teaching into administration. You do your coursework, and then once you finish that program, then you apply for your initial admin credential.
Got it.
And she's mostly through this program. Most programs will offer an intern, like have you be intern eligible, but this university doesn't offer that. So we had to find other ways for this to be credentially compliant, where I would say, probably 9 times out of 10, if a candidate's being considered who's still working on their admin credential, they would be intern eligible. So
Okay.
this one was a little bit of an outlier in that regard, but still this is a really solid path from a credentialing perspective. So
And then specific to California, you can't clear it until after you have a job.
that's
actually
exactly
doing it.
right. So once then you have your job and you get your initial, then you clear it in that time. And so that's why we have our induction program to help people clear. So yes, David's absolutely correct in that.
I'm going to continue to ask these questions, because
Please
the
do.
phrasing is the clearing, the certificate, the credential, a lot.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's all purposeful too.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions? All right, can I have a motion, please? waiver of credential requirements, right?
I move to waive the credential requirements. Did I phrase that correctly? For a specific person, do I have to say that?
Sure, we can, for
Okay,
Shannon Will.
for Shannon Will. Sorry.
All right,
It's not
motion is made by Mrs. Vargo
I'll second.
and seconded by Mrs. Yee. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. All right, that does it for our action items. We are to D, items removed from consent agenda, of which there are none. And information items. A, presentation of the sale results of Measure AS Series 2025 General Obligation Bonds. Mr. Dressler.
Yes, thank you. I would like to reintroduce you to Keith Weaver, Director of Services for GFS JPA. He has the pleasurable task of reporting out on the sale of our Measure AS bonds. I gave you a brief, legally required overview at the last meeting, but he'll go into a little more detail. He has a presentation. Is your position now, this is a question for you, because I've been calling you guys financial advisors, but are you now municipal advisors since you became a JPA?
I think we go by financial consultants.
Okay,
Yes.
I got none of them.
But we do provide advice.
Financial consultants.
Correct.
Thank you.
So terminology is much. But thanks for having me back here tonight, and have some very good news to share with you, which is the results of our Measure AS Series 2025, very first bond sale under this bond measure. And so to start us off, I'd like to just share a little bit about the process that we went through to arrive at our bond sale, and then discuss the results of the bond sale and wrap up with some suggested next steps. So in terms of setting the stage for the bond sale, we did incorporate a number of best practices as published by GFOA, or the Government Finance Officers Association. A lot of these revolve around competition, around managing costs, and really trying to get the best result for the district as possible. And then I lost my clicker here. There we go. Another phase of this bond sale was to get our credit rating evaluated. That was done by Moody's. Moody's affirmed our bond rating at AA1, which is an excellent credit rating. You can see the rating scale on the right-hand side here, and we are very up near the very top of this chart. So excellent credit rating for the school district. And reasons included good governance. So congratulations for the compliment to the board and the leadership team. Good governance was cited as one of the reasons for the excellent credit rating, along with our stable enrollment, and then sort of looking more broadly, our strong and growing local economy, as well as our community support for the district.
Same rating as the US government now, right?
That's correct. We have the same rating as the United States of America federal government. Bond sale process. So we had our bid process on May 1st. We used an internet bidding platform to notify bidders, to accept bids, to get the word out. We allowed any bank to submit a bid, included flexible parameters, and the goal was let's get as much competition as we possibly can, with the idea that more competition gives us better results. A bit about the market. So this is a benchmark interest rate index for the bond market. You can see when we were planning for the bond measure, Measure AS, back in June of 2024, this index was a little below 4%. We budgeted for rates to go up to about 5%, and you can see this index was starting to ramp up and then really had a large spike as we approached our bond sale. That was around April of this year, which you may recall that was when the news broke around the tariffs. It caused quite a bit of volatility in the markets. And you can see this interest rate index spiked above our budget, which may have been cause for concern. But I'll also share the market volatility caused the market indices to have some challenges measuring the market. And you can see here we have two market indices. They were both trying to measure the same market. You can see back at the beginning of last year in 2024, these indices were right on top of each other. But they began to diverge in last year, and then really diverged this April with the market volatility. And so the market indices were measuring the market differently. Good news, though, is that the lower interest rate index here, based on our research, was tracking the market more closely based on the market results we were seeing. So with that index, we were actually doing a little bit better than what we budgeted for in terms of market volatility. We also budget for interest rates with our credit rating, and that change is shown in blue here. You can see that this interest rate adjustment was also on the rise, but it also remained well within our budget. So good news from that perspective for our budgeting. And then about a week leading up to our bond sale, we had some really good news hit the markets, which is that there was some relief around tariffs. The news broke that maybe the tariffs wouldn't be as severe and maybe wouldn't last as long or happen as quickly as feared. And so a lot of relief in the markets, particularly in the stock market, but also more broadly in the bond market and the financial market. So really good to get to this positive news right before our bond sale. And then this is a calendar showing the bonds that school districts were going out to market with. And I'll share, you can see we're at the top of this list. There was another school district issuing a couple bonds later in the day, but we tried to get out ahead of them. And so our bond sale was earlier, and the idea was, let's try to get as many bids as possible and avoid the competition from the other school district that was going out to bid. So we tried to get on front of the other school districts that were issuing bonds. So that kind of set the stage for our bond sale. And then in terms of results, we ended up getting a dozen bids from across the country, which we thought was fantastic. You can see a really nice mix of bidders here. Some more regional, smaller names like Baird and Mesero and Hilltop, as well as some really big firms out of New York, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley. So nice mix of bidders, both small and large, joining our bond sale, which was good to see. And then in terms of results, you can see our winning bid came in at 4.37%. We had budgeted an interest rate of just below 5, so that was a really nice outcome to get that far below budget. The winning bidder was Bank of America, and you can see the bids ranged all the way up to 4.6%, and the dollar difference between our first place bid and our second place bid was about $250,000, and then our 12th place bid was about $1.9 million difference. So I think a really nice demonstration of the savings that can happen from the competitive bid process. And then 12 bids is a lot by our historical standards. You can see historically we've received between 3 and 5 bids on our prior bond sales, so 12 was outstanding. And then the table on the right here is showing some data we have on bid processes going back to 2003, over 400 bids of school districts around the state. And what I like to point out is a dozen bids is in the top 4% of what we've seen. So again, really stellar outcome in terms of being a really high number of bids being received. Why so many bids? Again, there wasn't very much competition in terms of other school districts issuing bonds, but we did try to get out in front of the competition. We think that was helpful. Our size of bonds was a good mix for both banks, large and small, and the excellent credit rating of our district we think was a real nice factor in generating the positive outcome. In terms of budget, so we issued $70 million as planned. Our costs for both our underwriter discount fee as well as our other costs across the board, they came in under budget. So we had less expensive upfront costs. We also received a premium that goes to the benefit of our taxpayers under state law, which was a nice outcome. And then bottom line, we ended up getting about $500,000 more for facilities projects than what we budgeted for. So ended up with $69.5 million into our facilities program to help pursue our Measure AS facilities projects. And then from our tax levy perspective, we have an estimate that's been updated showing our tax levies. These Series 2025 is actual, and then we have estimates going forward for upcoming series of bonds. But overall, for the whole measure, we're estimating that our Measure AS tax levies will be a little bit less, a little bit lower than had estimated pre-election, coming in below the $60 maximum, and again, maximum, average, minimum figures all slightly lower tax levies than had been estimated prior to the election. So we think this will be a good outcome for taxpayers as well, and that we're already off to a good start here. And then in terms of next steps, I want to start by congratulating you. We think it was a terrific bond sale for our facilities program, for our taxpayers. We already have the funds. They were received by the district on May 15th. They're ready to spend on our Measure AS facilities projects. And then looking out, we're planning tentatively for our next bond sale in the spring of 2027. So thank you, and happy to take any questions or comments.
Can I ask you to provide one clarification for the
Yes.
board related to the competitive process versus the negotiated process? Because it was a competitive process, but ultimately it's a negotiated agreement with the underwriter. Can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So so we used a competitive bid process to select our winning firm, which was, again, Bank of America. We used a negotiated process to enter into an agreement with them. So what that means is we essentially selected the bank that we negotiate with through this competitive bid process. So we ended up negotiating with Bank of America. What that negotiation gives us the flexibility to do is to fine-tune our bid based on the bid that we received. And so where that comes into play is that we were budgeting for interest rates to be at close to 5%, when they actually came in lower at 4.37%. We then want to sort of fine-tune our payments so that our tax levies for our taxpayers aren't going up and down, but they're staying relatively level. And so you can see that outcome here, where our tax levies are estimated to be relatively stable at just below that $60 tax levy. So it gives us the ability to negotiate with them on structure. It also, were the case needed, it would have given us the flexibility on timing. Given the volatility in the markets, it was sort of a question mark as to whether we would need that flexibility. But given the sort of the good news and the good outcome, we didn't actually need to negotiate any adjustments with them with respect to timing. So the negotiated process gives a little bit more flexibility in terms of sort of nailing down the details, but the bid process helps us select who we negotiate with, and we think that based on Bank of America's bid, they were by far the best cost proposal for us to enter into negotiations.
Questions?
This graph that you're showing us right now, why do the oldest series end up being the bulk of the tax levy at the end? Like the green bar is small, and then gets big at the end.
Yeah, good question. So maybe I'll start by sharing. So our first series, which is the purple bar, you can see that we pay that off fastest. And the reason we do that is because that's the bonds we have outstanding now. So we pay that off the fastest because those are the only bonds we have to pay. And so the tax levy goes toward that. And then you can see it tapers down. The next series of bonds in green, and you can see sort of as each series goes on, we pay them off as quick as we can. And the orange, which is our final series of bonds, gets paid off the fastest. The reason we pay that series off the fastest is because that's the furthest out in time. And so we budget for the most volatility in markets, right? We think that the further out in time that we go, the more potential there is for the markets in the future to be different than they are today. Now, the green one being sort of the next nearest bond series, we're budgeting for some volatility, but not as much because it's a little bit closer to us. And so for that series of bonds, it has a little bit more of a stagger where there's a lot paid off early, a lot paid off at the end, and the payments in between are relatively low. And the reason for that is because it gives us the sort of the room within our tax levy to get the other series paid off faster when we have the potential for more volatility in the marketplace over time.
And then we'll also have opportunities in the future to refinance them.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me also share that as we go through time, as we get closer to each series of bonds, there'll be opportunities to sort of refashion this based on how interest rates are doing. If interest rates coming in a little bit less, a little bit higher, we can fine tune. also based on the pace of our spending, right? If our facilities projects go a little faster, we can issue a little earlier. If they go a little slower, we can delay a little bit longer. So we'll be updating this as we go. And then also refinancing, if there's an opportunity to refinance to lower interest rates, we certainly will have the flexibility to do that as well. So sort of one step in the process, but we'll get to fine tune this as we go through the process.
And we refinanced in, I think, 2020,
Yeah.
2017.
Yep.
And that was historically low interest rates and saved, over the life of the bonds, I think 80-some million dollars. So Keith and Lori do a great job of keeping their eyes open for those opportunities.
And that last one's like 2-something%.
Yeah. That was an excellent timing, yes.
Yeah, that's very good. Another question. I noticed on the chart where you had different school districts, some were not Moody's rated. Why are some school districts Moody's rated and some are not?
Yeah.
And then how do we bump ourselves up to AAA? What are we missing?
Good question. So I guess the first question is, how come some school districts aren't
It
rated
was,
by Moody's?
yeah, it was farther.
Slide 10.
Oh, slide 10, thank you.
There.
Okay, yeah, so you can see some other districts are not rated by Moody's. If they would typically, there's another rating agency called S&P or
Oh,
Standard & Poor's.
it's just another rating.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they would get typically rated by one of the two. Those are the two main rating agencies.
Do we pay to get
We do.
ourselves rated? Okay.
Yes, we do pay to get ourselves rated. We selected Moody's because we thought it would be the better outcome
Okay.
between the two ratings.
How much do we pay to get rated?
I don't have the
30,000?
yeah, it was around. That
Yeah.
sounds about right. That's
Okay.
right ballpark. And that gets budgeted out of the bond program, so no hit to our general fund for that expenditure.
While you're on the slide, I noticed some of the other districts are AA2 or AA3. Do you recall off the top of your head, like what bond rate did they get in their sale, roughly?
Oh, for the other districts,
For
what
the other
percentage?
districts, yeah.
Oh, I don't recall off the top of my head, but I can get that information and share it.
I feel like when we talked about the ratings, because I was understandably nervous about our rating around the time of the meeting with Moody's, I think I had asked, like, what is the difference between the AA1 and a
Yeah.
AA2? And I think it was maybe 10 or 20 basis points that
Okay.
you guys
Yeah,
had
that's about
mentioned to me. So that made just generally the difference. I don't, I mean, how do we get to AAA?
I'm not trying to get there, I'm just wondering.
I don't know. I mean, become our own federal government?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But honestly, I was happy. I was relieved to stay at AA1. Keith shows on the slide here the reasons that they cited to maintain us. Full disclosure, one of the biggest concern they had about the district was our deficit spending. And I know we've talked about that, we've got our plan, and we've done presentations, but I mean, they're very savvy at Moody's. They know what they're doing, they understand school district financing, and they asked all the right questions. They drilled right into the most meaningful numbers. And so I shared with them that we have a deficit reduction plan. It's going to span over the 2 to 4 years. Because we thought maybe they would keep our rating flat, but maybe issue, what is it called, a negative outlook or a warning outlook. But they didn't even do that. I think it stayed stable.
Yep.
So in my mind, in reality, like that was the best possible outcome.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep, very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, department updates. Dr. Vernosdal.
All right, we'll hit each of our departments with updates since our last board meeting, and might as well start with business services, dude. Go right ahead.
Hello again. Michelle, I can tell you with all honesty that it is also the adults who don't understand the budget presentations. And that's why we're doing budget training for our managers, which is ongoing. We're now in the 4th round of 4. coming to the end of it, and we will be wrapping that up at the charge in 2 weeks, having a session to talk about how the process went and where do we go from there. Sticking with fiscal services, he looks okay right now, but David Vaughn probably has a headache because he's been working in our wonderful new HCM system, trying to create our budget for next year. And in a perfect world, you use your position control information to create budgets. Position control is how you determine the cost of your people, which, as you may recall, is about 85% of our budget. And not surprisingly, at this point, the new system doesn't do a very good job. It requires David to create a lot of workarounds, which he showed me some of them this morning, and my headache is now just passing from all that. But in all honesty, like, sadly, their new system is worse than our old system, which was really old at the time. But at least it did what it was what it was advertised to do. So thank you, David, for persisting and working on that budget. Nutrition services, just a quick shout out to our director, Kathleen Ashworth, who received the Hugo Reed PTA Outstanding Administrator Award a couple weeks ago. She was there on a Thursday night to accept the award. I was out of town and I couldn't attend, but congratulations to Kathleen. And then lastly, just a couple more updates on the facility side. Snack Shack. Tony and I met with PTA, high school PTA, athletic boosters, and staff, and we spent about an hour together reviewing all the wants and needs of those organizations within the Snack Shack. And so we have a list, and we're going to go back to them and sort of try and prioritize those lists, or that list. It was a very productive meeting, and so that continues to move forward. That is not a bond project. That'll be funded with our other special reserve for capital programs, for capital outlay funds. And then lastly, in the consent agenda, again, there is the award of contract for fencing at Hugo Reed Primary School. And I just wanted to point that out and firstly thank our partners at the city, because what this project entails is fencing in the park on the east side along De Anza. So currently, the west side on Michelinda gets locked up every day. There's a couple gates that they've locked up, and they had to maintain the access to the tennis courts, which they did. So now the west side is locked up. This summer, we will put this fence up generally along the street and the sidewalk on De Anza, and there'll be a pedestrian gate and a drive-through gate for the city vehicles to get onto the park. And so hopefully the plan is for that to be ready to go by start of school. And again, thanks to the city for their support in that project. And that's my update.
Do you know if the fence is gonna go to, like, the outfield baseball, that fence, or does it go all the way to the back
Further
fence?
east.
Okay.
It runs from, at the north end, it'll connect with the existing fence, and it'll run maybe about 10 or 15 feet off of the sidewalk, all the way down along the driveway that goes into what I found out is actually a water district facility. And there's like a cinder block wall around that. So there'll still be grass between that fence and then the outfield fence, and then the field begins.
Okay, so people will not have access to go behind the outfield fence then?
Correct. That'll all be closed off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also for Snack Shack, I'm sure you and Mr. Barros would be very welcome to come work a shift and get the real experience of what it's like to be in there.
Real research,
Yeah.
right.
Get to experience. It's fun. It is fun.
I think you would enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think you
I
would.
think you learn a lot too.
As a parent of a high school student recently, when I volunteered, I did the chain gang for the football games. I never did make it into the snack shack at my kid's school.
So a lot of camaraderie that's developed, team building.
Definitely.
Open invitation.
Yep.
Mini home game dates available.
We'll update it first and then I'll go.
Yeah, my question is, was Lee invited to your snack shack meeting?
I'm sorry, who?
Was Lee invited to your snack shack meeting? She often has a lot to say about the snack shack.
She's very passionate about that.
We had PTA leadership and the true athletic boosters leadership. I found out who that was. And district staff.
Okay.
Because they run the snack shack, I think, during like the invitational.
Okay,
All right.
So, I'm sorry, no.
that was just a little bit of a joke.
Okay.
She does have opinions.
Yes.
I'm happy to chat with her in the near future about it.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to educational services, Dr. Forson.
I'm trying to get visions of Dirk Benning, the nacho station, out of my head right now. Can't wait. I'll be there that night. This Thursday, Patty will be meeting with principals, our academic performance coaches, our instructional coaches, and ELD teachers to go over the proposed elementary assessment calendar. So we give a lot of assessments and making sure they're on days where there's not something special going on at a school or a minimum day, and so we get a lot of eyes on that. That's important, but it's also important for teachers to know in advance what that schedule's going to be, so they can plan their instruction and some of the unique things they do in their classroom around that as well. So they'll be working on that on Thursday. And then, as I've mentioned a few times, the reading assessment screener, 4 of them were approved by the state. That was a surprisingly low number. Looking at all the options, it looked like Amplify would be the best solution for us. And so we brought in probably about 50 or 60 teachers to be trained on the Amplify, the screener. We had 30 or so end up piloting it. So they piloted it this spring. We got feedback from those teachers, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive that this seems like the right fit for us for that screener. And so next board meeting, we'll be bringing to you for your authority to institute that next year, K through 2 for their reading screener, which will be in compliance with state law. And we're also really excited about some of the other assessments that Amplify offers, and we'll be kind of looking at those next year and may bring a bigger package at the end of the year for you to look at. So for next year, we'll stay with Renaissance for grades 3 through 5, which is our current assessment company. We'll use Amplify for the screener and K2 assessments, and then we will spend the next year having teachers give more feedback after having used it, the Amplify program, and see if we should make a switch from Renaissance or if we should keep Renaissance and have 2 different programs. It's not ideal to have 2 different programs, but if that's what ends up working the best, we'll do whatever we believe will give us the best data on students. So that's where we're headed with that. So expect to see that at the next board meeting on the agenda. And then our our Elementary MTSS Summer Institute will take place Thursday, June 5th. And again, that's where the elementary schools get together. They bring their MTSS leadership teams. We have some time together where they're all together talking about successes, talking about things that maybe didn't go so well. And then they get a lot of time for their site to plan. And the planning really is around what do they want their staff meeting PD to look like for the following year. So they're really laying out, hey, these are some of the topics, some of the things we want to hit in our PD time in our staff meetings for the following year. Dr. Van Osdal will be hosting the Superintendent's Welcome for all new families on Monday, June 2nd in the Performing Arts Center. And thank you, that's a wonderful event. I think you've done that for, 6 or 7 years now? And it's for new families coming to the district. Again, a lot of TK and K, but anyone who's new is invited. and to have your real welcome be from the superintendent, and you talk about culture setting and what, you know, living out what we're about. It is a wonderful opportunity, and thank you for hosting that. Jim is continuing to work on the LCAP. We had our LCAP advisory committee meeting last Tuesday. It went very well. We got some good feedback on a possible or attributes of a successful cell phone policy that we're going to be working on this next year. So that was a wonderful opportunity for that. And he also continues to work with site leaders who are working with their school site councils to adopt their school plan for student achievement. So all that's going on now as we're talking about promotion and graduation and trying to get all that wrapped up before teachers and some of our principals leave for the summer. And that is my update for tonight.
I have 2 questions. On the Amplify contract, is it a year-long contract?
Yes.
Okay. Same thing with Renaissance. Are we on a year-to-year basis with
I don't.
Renaissance?
Are we year?
In the last 2 years, we did year to year because we knew we had to adopt the screener, and we had tried out one that they had. They thought it was going to be approved, and it was not approved.
Oh, okay.
So we just did a year last year, and now we'll do another year.
Yeah. In previous years, we've done longer contracts with Renaissance, but that's right. We knew this was coming, and we didn't know it was going to be approved. We didn't want to get locked in if theirs wasn't approved. So it ended up working out in our favor for going short term. You do get a little bit of a discount if you extend the years out. So if it's something that we know it's historical that we're going to use, we do sometimes look for a longer term contract. But when there's these bumps in the road, they provide an opportunity. But the year to year cost is a little bit higher than if you go with a longer contract.
Like 20% higher or like unknown? Okay. Just a lot more. Okay. And then my other question was, I noticed on the calendar that the superintendent's welcome and K-Camp information meeting is 2 hours long? It's 2 hours long?
I think so.
Your meeting?
Yeah, I don't speak for 2 hours.
Oh, what
But
happens
there's
at that meeting?
information.
Oh.
Oh yeah, that's right. We do it once a year. So we're always trying David welcomes the families, and then there's usually, I don't know if every TK or K camp teacher comes, but there's usually several that come and do a presentation so parents are aware, like, this is what their day is going to look like. This is what we need from you.
Bring down the.
Yeah, here's how you drop your kid off. Here's what the first day will look like.
It's at the back? Oh, but if you have families coming in at other levels, is it relevant to them?
It is. They still get information, and then they just leave at that point.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that you kind of do like the first half an hour is general, and the rest is for.
It is overwhelmingly the brand new, but we do open it for anybody who's new that wants to hear about the district.
A lot of times those families that are not the TK families will have questions just in general, especially high school or something. So I stick around and just have a chance to answer any questions and things. So
Thank you.
yeah, we don't get a lot, but for the ones that come, I mean the non-TK, the upper grades, but for the ones that are there, they're a little anxious and just it's nice to kind of hear from people and what's going to happen. So yeah. But just to be clear, I only speak for a half hour.
Right, okay.
If that was your concern.
2 hours, what do you do for 2 hours?
Oh, I could. Andre always reminds me. Keep it 30 minutes. So, is that it?
That's it.
All right. That was a lot going on. All right. Thank you. We'll move on to Human Resource Services.
All right, I will start with Health Services on behalf of Nurse Manager Erica Newkirk. So it's been another busy year for Health Services. This year, our team saw 32,000 health office visits across all of our campuses. Over 20,000 of those encounters resulted in students returning to class after receiving care from our dedicated nursing team. We also completed around 10,000 health screenings this year, including vision, hearing, scoliosis, and oral health screenings, and connected students and families to healthcare resources when needed. District-wide, we referred to over 100 students to mental health services and around 75 students to financial assistance programs. We've had around 2,400 encounters for diabetes monitoring and have administered around 3,000 doses of medications. As always, we are grateful for the opportunity to participate in the health care of our students and look forward to another healthy year next year. Moving on to special education, on behalf of Dr. Catherine Mahoney, We are excited to get our extended school year summer program started on June 11th. It will run through July 10th. Thank you to the many staff members who work for this summer program. We couldn't do it without them. Thank you also to the leadership at Camino Grove, Dana, and AHS for partnering with us to host our summer programs. Moving on to HR, we're still in recruitment mode. We're getting close on the certificated end, but have a couple of positions that we're still filling. And then we continue to work on the classified side of the house as well. And then just want to, on behalf of the HR team, we want to thank all of the AUSD employees for another great year. And for those that get some time off in the summer, we wish them a relaxing summer break. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Kevin. And communications, Ryan Fran.
All right, good evening, everyone. Today and for the remainder of this week, we'll be publicizing and promoting our enrollment. And this is the last year of the TK expansion, so it's the youngest students we'll have. So this year, for the first time ever, we'll have 3-year-olds in our schools. So keep the TK teachers in your hearts and minds as they welcome 3-year-olds in their classrooms. And then we're educating, reminding the community and parents about our permit that we have available, especially TK. Elementary's pretty full, but we have some spots available for permits at the middle and high school levels. So we're sending some information on that on social media tonight, and then through press releases and the like later on this week and on our website. Raymond had the perfect inspiration. We don't remember days or remember moments, and Michelle gave a great rundown of some of the great moments that we'll have the final 2 weeks, but just a reminder of a few of the big ones. The grad runs are at Friday at 1 o'clock at the elementary schools, so any board members or staff that have not been, that is highly recommended to go. It is a great event and a moment that everyone loves to see and will remember for a long, long time. Then Wednesday we have our Rancho graduation, and then Thursday evening, of course, Arcadia High School graduation. And that's my report.
What time are the middle school grad runs, do you know?
They're right after that, so probably around 2,
Okay.
I'd say. Yeah, they go to the elementary schools. It's usually about 45 minutes or an hour. Then they all head over to the middle schools right after that.
And that will end our department updates. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. Okay, we are to consent items. We need a motion for consent items A through N, I believe.
I'll move to approve consent items A through N.
I'll second.
Motion's made by Mrs. Yee, seconded by Mrs. Vargo. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And now for the most exciting part of the night, our study session. 2025-2026 May revise and budget update, including assumptions, enhancements, and reductions. Mr. Vaughn.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the introduction. Good evening. I'll give it a second. I think I've got a short presentation to share. But I will start off saying that the May revise was not very eventful. The workshop we attended that was facilitated by School Services of California, it seems like, you know, they talked a lot about just the risk to the economy and the uncertainty primarily tied to the president's policies around tariffs and how that's going to impact GDP. I think that's kind of the big concern. One of the things I'll share is it's a term that kind of sounds like an oxymoron that I don't think I've heard before, but they call it a growth recession. And it's defined as like slowing GDP growth, but increase, like a projected increase in unemployment. So that was the term that was kind of unique. So I'll get right into it. It's a pretty short presentation just because, okay, just to look at the GDP over the last 4 quarters, you see that in the last quarter, in Q1 of 2025, GDP actually went negative to, was a decrease in GDP of 0.3%. And again, they attributed that to the president's tariff policies. And, you know, the one thing that they called out was typically They don't anticipate this continuing, and they don't anticipate another quarter, another negative quarter of GDP, which would indicate a recession. They do think it'll increase and it'll continue to grow, but they're projecting that GDP is going to be growing below trend, again, just due to the uncertainty. And they do think that unemployment is going to grow slightly over the next year. And a lot of what they use is the UCLA forecast. The other thing, in the California State Outlook, unemployment looks fairly flat to last year, but they do anticipate they're projecting increasing unemployment. The big three tax revenues, again, our primary source of revenue, personal income tax, corporate tax, and sales and use tax, versus the January budget proposal, the tax estimates for the big three are down 2.3%, or about $4.8 billion. And again, the risk to the budget is kind of tied to the federal policies. So over the next few slides, what I'll be going through is what they shared during the May revise in terms of potential impacts to the district budget. And I have a slide that I pulled from the workshop that kind of lists out. It was a little unique because a lot of times I feel like in the May revise, they're more definitive updates. And it was like, you know, if there's one-time money, this is how much we're going to get, and they know what the allocation methodology is going to be. That wasn't the case this year. So, and I'll share. So other than the COLA, all the other updates that I'll be sharing are not reflected in the budget, just based off of school services recommendation, due to ongoing negotiations between the governor and the legislators. Just, you know, I'm sure school services has like folks that are kind of embedded, and they know that, you know, the funds are in the budget, but because they don't know how the funds are going to be allocated, allowable uses, they recommended that we do not include it in our budget development. And it'll be finalized in early July when they actually have the enacted budget. And so at that point, we'll know, and you know, if it's significant and if it's material, we can definitely incorporate that in our budget through the 45-day budget revise process. So I'll go ahead and jump in. The COLA rates, unfortunately, the COLA rates are all down, the budget year and the 2 out years. Collectively, for that 3-year duration, it's a decrease of $1.3 million in our LCFF revenue versus where we were in the January budget proposal. So again, across 3 years, it's about $1.3 million. For 25-26, that decrease from 2.43 to 2.3% is about $140,000 in that 1 year for us. The second bullet point there, the thing that's also a little concerning is that although the governor's planning to fully fund the LCFF, he's partially funding it with one-time funds, and he's fully depleting the Prop 98 reserve, the rainy day fund. The last bullet point there, this is one of the initiatives that he had, the TK add-on. So to help with funding the decrease in the adult-student ratio, we're currently at 12-1. Next year, we're going to go to 10-1 in TK. In January, his proposal had proposed the TK add-on per ADA. It was going to go from the $3,100 to like, it was going to double. It was going to go to $6,200. And so they've since pared that back. What they actually have in the May revise is the $5,500 per ADA, but school services, again, is saying it's on the negotiations are ongoing. Don't use that number in your budget. Use the 3148, which is our current TK add-on with the 2.3% COLA. On this slide, again, these are all the additional, the other funding sources. The Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, that statewide, it's $380 million in the governor's May revise. Again, there's not a lot of information in regards to the allocation methodology. We do know that I spoke to Jim Anderson, who's working on our LCAP, and you know, if these funds are received, we're required to incorporate them in the LCAP and perform a needs assessment. I think one of the recommendations they shared was that we should indicate that, and just indicate that the needs assessment would be contingent upon these funds being incorporated into the enacted budget and just having that in the LCAP. But it's just a recommendation, but because we're not sure whether or not we're going to get it, it's not required in the LCAP. The Student Support and Professional Development Block Grant, it's $1.7 million in the state budget. In the January budget proposal, I think after the workshop, School Services came up with an estimate of this being about $314 per pupil, which would be about $2.7 million for us. There was no update to that. The only update since the January budget proposal was a decrease from 1.8 to 1.7. But again, there's ongoing negotiations with the legislators, so we're not exactly sure how that's going to be allocated. The Expanded Learning Opportunity Program, this is the funding we use primarily for our ELOP after-school program. Although the statewide budget has increased, it's not a good story for us. With ELOP, schools are funded based off of one of two rates. It's rate one. Rate one currently are districts with a UPP greater than 75%. And rate two is anyone below. Anyone that's rate one is funded at $2,700, I think it's $2,750 per unduplicated pupil. Anyone with rate two, like us, is funded at about $1,600 per unduplicated pupil. The governor is adding more dollars to ELOP. However, he is decreasing the threshold for the rate one from 75% to 55%. So what that means is more districts are going to be getting the higher rate of $2,750 per UPC, and whatever's remaining is going to be allocated to the rate two districts like us. So the current rate of $1,560 that we're getting is likely going to decrease. I've incorporated, my projection is a 10% decrease. So in 24-25, we received about $2.5 million for ELOP. I spoke to Dr. Tung and I'm like, let's be prepared to spend like 10% less. So I have $2.2 million projected for next year. They don't know exactly what the number is going to be at this point, but I'm anticipating a decrease just to be conservative. The good news is that Dr. Tung has been pretty good with our ELOP funds, and he has not fully spent our annual allocation each year, so I don't think it'll be a challenge for next year, but unfortunately, I think it's going to be a decrease for us. The Universal Meals Program, the governor is planning to add $90 million just to continue funding the Universal Meals Program, making sure that that continues. And so we should benefit from that, but again, we're not exactly sure how that looks for us in terms of the per meal reimbursement. And so this was the slide that School Services shared at the end of that workshop. It's like, hey, these are all how does this look in terms of your budget development process? And it's like, just use the 2.3% COLA. Let's leave everything off for now. And again, so what this means for us is the change versus where we were in the January proposal. It's just the COLA. That decrease is about $140,000, and the COLA is also applied to our special ed funds, nutrition services, and our mandate block grants, and that's fairly minimal. That decrease of 0.1%, about $13,000 across all the other funds, all the other grants. So overall, it's about $150,000 less than where we were in our LCFF projection during the January proposal. So shifting gears a little bit, this is something that we always share at this time as we prepare for budget development, just looking at our ongoing revenue and ongoing expenses. It's a waterfall chart, and again on here, the green bars represent a favorable change in our change in fund balance, and the red bars represent a decrease or an unfavorable change. So starting off on the left-hand side, our new revenue, the $2.48 million in LCFF is primarily driven by the COLA of 2.3%. Step-in column for salaries and benefits amounts to about $1.5 million. PERS, as I shared last time, the good story there is that the PERS rate is decreasing about 0.25%, and that's going to save us about $50,000. The benefit cap The $470,000 increase is the increase in our benefit cap across all our benefit eligible employees. The new positions, the $80,000, that is, those are the new positions tied to the preschool and STC class. And of course, that's offset by additional LCFF revenue that we anticipate receiving and tuition that we'll charge to parents for the preschool class. And then lastly, in the other, that big green bar, that improvement there is primarily driven by our deficit reduction plan of $3.2 million, and that is offset by the increases in our property and liability insurance premiums. And that gets us to a projected net increase in our general fund balance of $3.3 million. That's just the net ongoing revenue and ongoing expenses. This does not include any one-time activity, but this is a good story compared to where we've been in the past. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
So the plan is for the state to completely deplete the Prop 98 reserves. Is there, what about after that?
I think the governor, I know that it's gotten worse. I think in the January proposal, they did anticipate, as if they anticipated improvements in GDP and so forth and Prop 98 funding, they were planning to replenish. That's always, I think, a goal to replenish the rainy day fund for Prop 98. But then I think he's kind of out of options at this point because he wants to fully fund LCFF, and in addition to depleting the rainy day fund, he's also there's a proposal to defer our June apportionment. So every month, we receive allocations for cash for our attendance, and what they're proposing is that the June 2026 apportionment is going to be delayed to July to help with some of the challenges with the state budget.
The public school, the Prop 98 reserve gets depleted. There's also a statewide reserve, and I don't know whether that gets depleted or not.
It is not depleted. I mean, it's a lot lower than where it was about 2 years ago, but yeah.
That supports the entire state budget, but that could also be used to help. One of the things that is you're seeing reductions in here, yet they're still funding the COLA. It's because total enrollment is declining statewide. So they're adjusting their projections to fund fewer or less ADA in the coming year. That's one of the ways that they're managing this. But the state law now requires that they pass a balanced budget, in the middle of June. But what we're seeing, and we've seen this in the last couple of years, and it's getting worse, is that they pass a framework of a budget, like, just big numbers without any details. And it's becoming more and more transparent that it's like we don't have the information we need to really create our own full budget. And unfortunately for us, the recommendation we're getting is to leave out the dollars. At the state level, they get to leave the dollars in without any description. We don't get to include them. I mean, that's what school services is recommending. And we're going to follow that recommendation, and that's okay because it's mostly one-time money, but it just makes it tougher for districts to budget.
What's the it's nice to see PERS go down a little bit. What is the reason for that? Because it's been going up every year, and is this a trend now that hopefully we see it coming down?
No,
Oh.
unfortunately. So
Okay.
currently we're at 27.05%.
Yeah.
So for every dollar we pay a classified employee who's PERS eligible, 27 cents on every dollar is going towards a pension expense. So next year it's going down to 26.81. I think it's down about 2.24%. Yeah, and unfortunately, there's a dartboard. Basically, it's it's a dartboard, but basically they call it a dartboard. It doesn't look anything like a dartboard. It's one, it's it's just a bunch of metrics, and it has out years in there. So the projection is that unfortunately PERS continues to climb again in the out
Oh, it
years.
does.
Yeah, STIRS continues to stay flat at 19.1%,
Right,
which
right.
is great because we have more more salaries tied to STIRS than we do with PERS. But yeah, it does go back up. It's not going to be on a downward trend,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Oh, it's too bad.
Yeah, we'll take whatever reprieve we
Right.
can get.
Right.
Yeah, and I want to say that like years ago, when I first kind of started, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, when the state budget was pretty healthy, the governor would set aside money to help
Right.
fund PERS and STIRS, and they haven't done that in a really long
It was
time.
just that one time that he
Yeah.
did
Yeah,
that.
we loved that rather than
Yeah.
them giving us funding through one-time grants. And one-time grants would always kind of like be disproportionately allocated because all the districts with a higher UPP would get a lot of that money. When they put it in things like COLA or like STIRS and PERS, we all benefit equally. Yeah, but they haven't done that in a while.
All right.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn.
Thanks.
Until July.
All right, we are now to comments of the board, superintendent, staff. And actually, let's start with Ms. Fan tonight.
That was really interesting. I think at the end of the day, I understand some acronyms now. Like I know what the LCAP is, but I still don't know what a COLA is, but I really learned something. But one thing I forgot to mention in the board report was that our baccalaureate ceremony is this Sunday at 1 p.m. Or at least that's when the students are coming in. So yeah, and then also I just wanted to shout out the Pops concert. I couldn't go, but they previewed it at the assembly, and like people were rapping to the orchestra. There were dinosaur costumes, so I'm sure it was great. And then last, just once again, congratulations to the valedictorian and salutatorian speakers, Max, Emily, and Nathan. Yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you, Mrs. E. I mean, Ms. Fan, sorry. Mrs. E, go ahead.
I'd like to be Miss Fan for a day. Let's see. I wanted to just thank Mr. Esslin and his team, and just for the bond sale. It's pretty incredible that what happened. Really happy with the outcome, and I know there was a lot of work involved with it, so thank you to you and everybody else on your staff that had a part in that. And then Mr. Vong, of course, we really do appreciate everything you do for our budget, and it sounds horrible what you're going through, and all I can say is that just know that we really appreciate all the work you're putting into it, so thank you. Can't believe the school year is almost over. I really enjoyed attending the induction colloquium. If we don't know what that means still, but that's okay. It's really nice to see just the mentor, the teachers, and then also to see the first year of the administrator induction. So appreciate, I know Ms. Mendoza, and who else? I know there are other people who are a part of that
Yes.
organizing
Yes.
it. So thank you to everybody who puts that together. And then I attended the Baldwin Soccer Open House last week with Mr. Chung, and as always, really fun. I think the highlight for most people was the City of Arcadia model that they did, which was really cool. They did this, the third graders did this model of the city, and you could really see like where all the schools were, the mall, so that was really fun. And then just all the creative work that they've done is always, I know, always amazed at what the teachers can come up with every year. So thank you for all of that. I attended the Arcadian Performing Arts Foundation Board Zoom meeting last week as well, or was it this Monday? It might have been this Monday.
So they wanted me to just ask everyone to mark your calendars for September 20th, which is their date for the gala dinner, and their featured musical performers is going to be All for One. And if you don't remember who they are, one of their famous songs is I Swear. Everybody remember that? So it should be fun. So mark your calendars for that. And they've also selected their scholarship winner, which I know will be presented at the Senior Awards on Thursday. And they're continuing their work on developing their new mission statement through the summer. Lastly, I did want to just give a shout out to the Arcadia Music Club parents. And they're having their last meeting potluck dinner, honoring the parent volunteers and the senior parents that are graduating. And I could not attend because I'm here tonight, so that's kind of a bummer. But I just wanted to thank the outgoing president, Ling Ji, for all her hard work the last 2 years. She did an amazing job, and welcome their new president, Kim Chrissy. I'm sure she will also do a great job. I know she's been really involved in the music club as well. So I look forward to working with them next year. And other than that, I hope everyone has a great summer who is having the summer off, since I think our next board meeting is after school gets out. And look forward to graduations coming up. And that's all I have for tonight.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Z. Mrs. Bargo?
I also enjoyed the induction colloquium. That's the first time I've been. So that was wonderful to see the celebration of all the mentors and mentees at different stages in their relationship. I like that. The next day, on the 15th, Dr. Van Asdal held his annual PTA In and Out President's workshop, and that was great to see the different units talking to each other, and the principals talking with the incoming presidents and the outgoing presidents. And the topic this time was promotional parties and kind of aligning across school sites to kind of all be on the same page. And then I'm trying to see what other stuff I want to mention to you. The only thing I do want to mention to you, and I talked to Dr. Van Asdal about this, is I'm actually, CSBA sent us all of us board members an invitation to meet with Mike Fong this Friday, and I took them up on that. So I'm going to be going with board members from 2 other districts just to talk about, to encourage him to continue to fund education. And I will send you, Dirk or David, the email that CSBA sent me, and maybe you can give me some examples of how that affects our school district so that I can speak with some specifics. And that's about it.
I might have a couple of topics that I might send your way as well.
Oh, may I send
the
it?
HRC is working on.
Would you like me to send it to the whole executive committee?
Let's do that.
Or to you, or to the
Send it to
executive
me,
committee?
and I'll
Okay.
collect it into one
Great,
document.
thank you.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
And that's it.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Vargo. Ms. Ring?
I didn't attend many events, but I did attend events celebrating the retirements of some people, and that was very enjoyable. I think, once again, I want to thank and congratulate Jana Sanchez, Dana PE teacher, of course, Dr. Daniel Hacking, and of course, Scott Brantley. I've worked very closely with these 3 people over the years, and I want to thank them for their service. Once again, good news on the bond sale. Great news, actually. I appreciate all the hard work from Mr. Long, Mr. Eslin. That AA1 rating is not something to be taken for granted. I think it's huge. So thank you for that. That's all I have. Looking forward to graduation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ring. I think everyone covered most everything, so I just will say congratulations to all of the PTSA award winners on honorary service awards and others. I know those are happening around now. And of course, congratulations to all the upcoming grads. Looking forward to graduation next week. And I will let Dr. Bernal take it home.
Thank you. Yeah, as you mentioned, the PTA incoming, outgoing, and the principals meeting has become an annual spring event. And I always think, I see these folks spending a lot of time together, so I just assume, but it never fails that, just that time and space for them to speak, and you could give them 6 hours and they could have used it. So it was really nice, and I appreciated everyone taking the time to share that knowledge, because we always talk about, PTA and all of our other organizations, that it's it's purposefully a revolving door of parent volunteers, but because of that, we forget sometimes that you have to provide space for that knowledge to be shared between the people leaving and the people coming in, or you keep reinventing the wheel every year. So it was time well spent, and I was impressed with, the elementary group just moved right outside onto the patio and started discussing, and I had to drag them over for lunch, so it was a nice event. I did want to share that I was very honored to ask to be the guest speaker at the regional Hindu Guru Vandana event, which is the celebration of the teacher, and it was at the Temple City Temple Community Center. And you would have not been surprised that most of it was run by students, and most of them were our students from First Avenue or Arcadia High School. And just a beautiful event. Students did from music to dancing. They had a lot of skits prepared, basically helping to kind of educate community on the Hindu religion. And then we had a nice ceremony, and so there were some teachers there from Arcadia and from the different districts around, and then they honored me with giving the speech at the end of just kind of talking about education and the importance of, and so it's a beautiful event, and I really appreciated the invite and having Arcadia be spotlighted at that event, so that was nice, and that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Manozlo. And I just do want to mention one last thing. Yesterday was Memorial Day, so I do want to recognize those service members who gave their lives in service of our country, including my friend Adam Roseman, class of '98, who died in Iraq in 2007, and all the other Arcadia grads who also died in service of our country. And with that, I will adjourn our meeting at 8:37.